All right, the Washington Post reporting that the president's son-in-law and top advisor, Jared Kushner, was at the White House meeting with several Latino leaders negotiating over young immigrants known as Dreamers. He's quoted as saying this, that permanency would receive full consideration. Now, that's prompting some on the right to say any mention of amnesty could cost the president his shot at re-election. Let's bring in syndicated columnist and author Michelle Malkin for her reaction. Michelle, great to have you with us tonight. Your reaction to today.
Shannon, I think there's no question that the perception is that President Trump has, quote unquote, caved. And they're doing their best now to make clear that he is going to try as much as possible to keep this central campaign promise of building the wall. And for that, I have to say I do appreciate that, because there have been few Republicans, let alone Democrats, who've been committed to putting American security first above all else, which is really what should be the prerogative and the presidential imperative from day one. That said, like I said, he's not only between a rock and a hard place, he's between a swamp and a hard place. And when you are able to weaponize, as the Democrats have, a workforce of tens of thousands of people, I think it was just inevitable that we were going to have this outcome. So what's going to happen in the next 3 weeks? Well, you're hearing all of this talk now that in 3 weeks, yes, we may see a national emergency declaration, but that's just going to cause even more cynicism among the American people, because why isn't it a national emergency now? Why not declare it an emergency now? It's been a festering emergency for the last quarter century, or at least the last quarter century that I've been covering this issue, Shannon.
And a lot of people will say, listen, if that's the last tool that he has in his bag, they're immediately going to find a judge within the Ninth Circuit to go rule on it. And that, you know, like so many of his policies, asylum, DACA, everything else, it's going to be tied up in the courts. But in the meantime, something tonight that is guaranteed to drive him crazy. Congresswoman Karen Bass tweeting this out. At Speaker Pelosi should give the State of the Union, since she's obviously the one running the country. You know that's going to get under his skin.
Ouch. That's right. Well, the Beltway Swamp Queen and her acolytes are certainly beating their chests triumphant. But I think it's worth reminding the American public that this is a woman who's trying to pose as a champion of federal workers, who represents a party that wants to abolish ICE completely, who essentially called ICE agents quote unquote cowards, and has put every last illegal alien migrant trying to get across the border ahead of the interests of law-abiding Americans, and yes, law-abiding immigrants, not to mention all the people who around the world who are unfairly being treated because they're trying to get into this country the right way and respect the rule of law. That's what Nancy Pelosi represents. I call her Pelosi sin fronteras, Pelosi without borders, because that is the dug-in position of the Democrat Party. So among President Trump's most ardent supporters tonight, who are trying to spin this as some sort of victory or win, what they're hoping is that in the next 3 weeks, the American public's eyes will be really open to how extreme the open borders Democrat Party is.
Yeah, I mean, because you know, we had brand new Fox News polling out just a couple of days ago that showed the majority of Americans blame the president for this current situation. So the Democrats know that. They know that the media, in great part, is on their side, and they're winning the public perception battle. In the meantime, I want to ask you really quickly before we're out of time. The top Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, has said, we're totally against the wall, but we're willing to talk about other things like the need for drug inspection technology, humanitarian aid, strengthening security, blah, blah, all these other things, but no way on the wall. So where do we end up in 3 weeks? Are they just going to say the same thing? We never told you we're going to give you the wall. We said we talk about border security. You're not getting the wall.
Yeah, and it is like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football, because, of course, the Democrats are paying lip service to, quote unquote, smarter border technology, but their stance over the last quarter century has been to pay lip service to it during election cycles and then to sabotage it. I mean, they really are on the side of Open Borders, Inc., the entire racket of maintaining all of the magnets that are drawing people here in the first place. And this is why it is incredibly important that this president president listen to the grassroots that helped elect him and put him in office, and to reject any amnesty in any form, period. So the idea that there would be a path to citizenship for 700,000 DACA recipients and 300,000 so-called temporary protected status recipients who've been here, many of them since 1991, with 3-year extensions interminably, there is no such thing as a temporary amnesty, and that is proven by history and all of the reporting that I've done on the more than a dozen amnesties that have been passed by Congress since 1986.
Yeah, he's getting that message loud and clear from a lot of folks tonight. We'll see what impact it has. Michelle Malkin, thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.
You bet. You too, Shannon. Thank you.